What's going on, everybody? C4 here, and welcome back to our 2019 draft prep breakdown videos, where today we're going to be taking a look at my top 10 edge rushers for the upcoming draft class, which is very, very good. I'm looking at 6. The top 6 all should be locks to go in the first round, and from 7 to 10, even some of my honorable mentions, I think these are going to be guys who are going to be able to make impacts as rookie players in the National Football League. So as we continue to go through these rankings, we do always need to reference our starting point really quickly. Original edge rush rankings. Yeah, I used to make like a graphic for this. It was so stupid hard to make it, so just take my word for it. Honorable mentions in my first edge ranking, we had 2. We had Austin Bryant and O'Shea Zymans. I think that's how you pronounce it. Zymans. Sure, from Old Dominion. Watched a lot of his tape. Never heard his name being said, but those are honorable mentions. And then from 10 all to 1. At 10, we have Zach Allen. 9, Jachai Polite. 8, Jalen Ferguson. 7, Jalen Jelks. 6, Joe Jackson. 5, Brian Burns. 4, Montez Sweat. 3, Clelin Ferrell. 2, Josh Allen. And 1, Nick Bosa. Gotta tell you right now, not a whole lot of changes so far. And I don't think there's really going to be anything that's going to drastically change my top 4. Then from 5 to maybe 8, there could be some fluctuation depending on how guys and certain players perform at the combine. But I felt pretty comfortable for quite some time now in my edge rushing ranking. So that being said, let's jump into our 4 honorable mentions for the updated edge rusher rankings. I have Jaylen Ferguson from LA Tech. Really, really good production. However, there are some concerns about his athletic ability, a big combine he needs. Then we have O'Shea Zymans from Old Dominion. Another player, very good production, kind of undersized, like what kind of scheme he's going to play in the National Football League. Another guy that's going to want to show out at the combine. We have Jordan Brailford, Oklahoma State. Really good production this year, kind of had a breakout season. I actually kind of liked him at the Senior Bowl. He looked pretty damn good for me. And I think if he tests well at the combine, could have a chance at sneaking into the top 10. And then finish up with DeAndre Walker, outside linebacker from Georgia. I think he's going to have, again, another guy. Tape looks pretty good. Obviously, Georgia's defense has been strong, been the strength of the team for a little bit now, along with that run game. I think DeAndre Walker looks really, really good against the run. Should be able to get a lot of production and contributions to a defense as a rookie. And could very well, like Brailford, crack the top 10 with an impressive combine. But with that being said, let's hop into the official top 10. And at number 10, I have Anthony Nelson. You guys might remember from the Toronto Huskies series because he was a god for us as a rookie. I think we had like 15.5 sacks. But in real life, he's really good as well. 6'7", 270 out of Iowa in 2018. 45 tackles, 13.5 tackles for loss, 9.5 sacks, and he did get a touchdown. Look at the positives for Anthony Nelson. He is a great run defender. His frame is a plus. He's one of those guys that, in all reality, you can classify him as a defensive lineman. He can play defensive end in a 3-4. You can play defensive tackle a little bit in a 3-4. You can play defensive tackle in a 4-3. Maybe you could view him as a defensive end in a 4-3. I think that flexibility is what's going to get him drafted, because I think there's going to be some limitations when it comes to his pure pass rushing ability, which ultimately will come down to the fact that just from his size, he's not a terrific athlete. You're not getting a Julius Peppers here. You're getting a guy that's really, really big and has those limitations that come with being that big and being that long. But ultimately, he could surprise a little bit at the combine, but I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of burst, which is going to be desired for that edge rush ability. But, he will be a guy that I think will go in the 3rd round, maybe a chance as low as the 4th, but he will ultimately, I believe, get a lot of contribution to whatever team he gets and goes to as a rookie. Going to number 9 is going to be Zach Allen, 6'5", 285 pounds, out of Boston College in 2018. 61 tackles, 15 TFLs, 6.5 sacks, an interception, and 7 pass breakups. We look at Zach Allen. He's a great run stuffer. He shows his flashes as a pass rusher. But I think ultimately when I look at it, I just see an average athlete. I think a guy that is going to have some obvious athletic limitations. I mean, could surprise me at the combine, but kind of showed the things that I was a little bit concerned about. Like another one's like, what position is he going to play? Is he a defensive end? Is he going to be a D tackle? Is he going to, kind of like Anthony Nelson, is he just going to float around the defensive line and just be versatile, which is definitely a positive. But, when I watched him at the Senior Bowl, I didn't see a guy that, looked like the guy that played at Boston College. Maybe a level of competition could have been a concern because he really did have some of his best games against a lesser competition in the ACC. But the production is there, man. He's an incredibly intriguing prospect. I've seen a lot of people have him go in the 1st round. I think once the combine's all said and done, he'll be more established as probably a late 2nd to, pretty much a solid 3rd round pick, which is kind of where I have him right now. But yeah, man, kind of like Anthony Nelson. These guys that have that question mark about what position they're going to play. No refined position yet. Kind of is going to affect where I can rank them and where I think their draft stock ultimately lies. But still with Zach Garland, you can't ignore the production. This year, 2018 and 2017, he was a very productive defender, and I think, does have some upside. Going to number 8, I have Jaylen Jelks, 6'5", 245 pounds, out of Oregon. In 2018, he had 56 tackles, 7.5 TFLs, and 3.5 sacks. I think he has tremendous burst off the line. Great frame, 6'5". He looks even longer. Probably has super long arms. I'm going to be interested to see that actually matches up when he gets his measurements at the combine. Had a huge 2017. In 2017, he had 15.5 TFLs, 7 sacks, 7 pass breakups. Outside linebacker, I think he also has the traits to play defensive end. But again, very similar to the guys we already talked about in the top 10. What position is he going to play with those size limitations? That's kind of the common theme for the guys that are just barely cracking in my top 10. Because from an athletic standpoint, from a production standpoint, from a technical standpoint, they all have their strengths and weaknesses, enough so that I believe they will go, like I said, in that third round. Might be able to creep into the second round with a really, really big combine. That's kind of will be surprising to me. But with Jaylen Jelks in particular, what's he going to play? Is he going to play outside line? I personally feel, looking at him, I would guess he might be more suited to be a 3-4 outside linebacker. But obviously that 2017 season was huge. But then a negative can be inconsistent. Did not have as big of a 2018. So, you're going to have to probably, for him and his sake, have a very nice combine and show off his athletic traits to be a 3-4 outside linebacker. Go to number 7. It is going to be my sleeper of the class. And that is Joe Jackson, 6'5", 260 from the U. 2018 stats, 47 tackles, 14.5 TFLs, 8.5 sacks, an interception, and 2 forced fumbles. For me, Joe Jackson is just really, really well-rounded. Has pass rushing moves, great against the run, can set an edge, prototypical 4'3" size. He has proven production. He has played 3 years at Miami. All 3 years, he was one of the best edge rushers in the ACC. Really, the concerns right now, and I've kind of looked around at a couple other scouts, because something I did notice, I thought it was more so because of his injury, because he had a banged up arm and stuff like that. So I just thought maybe it was just the initial burst, the initial contact. He was kind of getting messed up a little bit. But a lot of scouts just have burst concerns with him. They think he had a little bit of weight and doesn't have that same edge rushing advantage, that first step that he had the first couple years at Miami, and we didn't see it much in 2018. So I did kind of see that a little bit, but I thought more so is that arm injury, just being able to get that initial engagement with defensive linemen looked a little bit different. Obviously, because the general concern around the scouting community is his burst, combine will help his stock. But I think ultimately Joe Jackson is an incredibly safe prospect that not enough people are giving a lot of credit right now. He started out the year probably as a first-round pick. Now I see a lot of people having him in the second round, so I'm going to the third. If he's sitting there in the second round, he is going to be an absolute steal. And hey, Philly, wouldn't mind my Eagles getting him if we don't go edge rusher in the first. Going to number 6, we have Jachai Polite, 6'2", 240, out of Florida in 2018. 45 tackles, 19.5 tackles for loss, 11 sacks, 4 pass breakups, 6 forced fumbles. Retire Moms, that's his Twitter, @RetireMoms. As a Gator fan, kind of came out of nowhere, which is literally one of my only negatives for him. It's just he had limited production at Florida, wasn't able to get on the field a whole lot before 2018. And yeah, there are a little bit of size concerns at 6'2", 240, because I think personally, obviously at Florida, was a defensive end. We go to the NFL, most likely will transition to a 3-4 outside linebacker. I think either way, he will be successful because his relentlessness. He is the most relentless edge rusher in the country. He brings it 100% full gear, balls to the wall, pedal to the metal on every single play. Very slippery off the edge. Great versatility. Like I said, I personally think even if you play maybe like a wide 9, he could be a 4-3 defensive end. But I think ultimately he will be a 3-4 outside linebacker. But just relentless, man. He's a slippery player. And I think, obviously, anytime someone has one big boom year, there will be some concerns. But I think Jachai Polite has pretty much solidified himself as a first-rounder. And with a lot of teams that run a base 3-4 needing that edge rushing help, Jachai Polite would be surprising to me to see him slip beyond pick number 20. Going to number 5, we have Montez Sweat, 6'5", 245 pounds, out of Mississippi State. In 2018, he had 53 tackles, 14.5 tackles for loss, 12 sacks, and a forced fumble. So look at the positives of Montez Sweat. I've watched quite a bit as I have had him mocked to my Philadelphia Eagles. He's very well-rounded. He's good against the pass. We always knew he was good against the pass because he's got a lot of proven production in the SEC. But what we found out more at the Senior Bowl is that, man, he can set an edge and he can affect the run. He does a lot of the ugly things, the things that aren't necessarily always going to show up on the stat sheet pretty damn well. I think he's technically sound. I think he has some great power. And really, the only big negative for Montez Sweat is just there's general athletic concerns. Nothing that he's not a bad athlete. It's just there's a reason why he might be at 5 in this class, because he won't be as elite of an athlete as some of the top tier prospects. So there's a chance that he could impress a lot of people at the combine and won't even be available to my Philadelphia Eagles. But I really do like Montez Sweat as a prospect. He does bring some versatility. I think he's going to be better suited as a 4-3 defensive end, but could definitely play 3-4 outside linebacker if he does test well at said combine. Pro comparison. Now I'm going to tell you right now, these pro comparisons for the edge rushers were without a doubt the hardest. And literally, you know, some of them, I'm going to tell you right now, some of them I'm not even huge fans of. It's just, you know, from a tape standpoint at least. Because, like, I was like, some of these guys would match up well with some players that I have tape on, obviously in the NFL. But I was like, from an athletic standpoint, they'll be drastically different. Or from a body type standpoint, they're a little bit different. So, not my proudest pro comparisons, but there are some aspects of some of these guys' names that you're going to see over the top 5 that show a lot of similarity. So that being said, Montez Sweat, my pro comparison of him is Ryan Kerrigan of the Washington Redskins. Now, Ryan Kerrigan, definitely a lot more powerful. Ryan Kerrigan put up like 30-some reps of the bench press, and I think Ryan Kerrigan's always been more suited for a 3-4 than Montez Sweat, who's a 4-3. But from a technical standpoint, the way they get off blocks, the way that they have their pass rush moves set up, how they set them up, it looks really, really similar to me. So I saw a lot of comparisons there. Not my best one, I'll tell you that. Going to a defensive end, edge rusher, number 4, I have Brian Burns, 6'5", 230 pounds from Florida State. In 2018, he had 52 tackles, 15.5 tackles for loss, 10 sacks, and 3 forced fumbles. Look at the positives for Brian Burns. Excellent speed rusher. He's a great athlete, has tremendous bend off the edge. And the biggest negative is his weight concerns. Obviously, you're probably not going to hear anything about Brian Burns to see if any of you guys out there have him constantly mocked your team, like say you're a freaking Panthers fan. I know that's a really popular one right now. Is the weight. He's 230. He is a very, very small frame in terms of what is on there right now, but I do think once he gets to a strength and conditioning program at the NFL level, he will be able to bulk up just a little bit. And because of the weight concerns, though, he won't offer a complete pass rush set until he gets stronger. He just does not have the power moves there, but I do think if he gets up into the 240s, 245, which he should, that side of his game will come along. A pro comparison for him is Danielle Hunter of the Minnesota Vikings. Obviously, Hunter kind of slipped a little bit because of limited production at LSU, but he had a freak combine. I'm not necessarily Brian Burns is going to light the combine up like Danielle Hunter, but you can definitely see from a burst standpoint, from an athletic standpoint, coming off the edge, a lot of similarities between their games. Going to number 3, we have Clelin Ferrell. 6'5", 260 pounds out of Clemson. In 2018, he had 55 tackles, 20 TFLs, 11.5 sacks, and 3 forced fumbles. Look at the positives of Clelin Ferrell. He has powerful edge rushing moves, and he comes with, you know, just a well-defined basis, a great starting point. There's no real areas that I'm going to be like, well, yeah, he's got to learn this at the next level. He is coming in as pro-ready of a prospect as I think in this year's draft class. Obviously, number 1 for sure, my rankings can join him in that. Number 2, a little bit less of an extent. But yeah, I think he has, you know, he's pretty much ready to go right now. And he's also has a lot of versatility to his game. I mean, he can affect the pass. He has done that for the last couple years at Clemson, but he's also developed a great set of setting the edge and affecting the run game, which is exactly what you kind of want to need in a defensive end in today's society, because no one really wants to invest that top 10, top 12 pick in a player that's one-dimensional. When you look at the negatives of Clelin Ferrell, I kind of think he does have the lowest ceiling out of the first-round edge rushers. I think that he is as close to his peak, more so than a Brian Burns or a Josh Allen or a Nick Bosa or Montez Sweat, or even, like, say, a Jachai Polite. So that could be a negative, but you're getting, right now, a pro-ready player that's going to be able to make an impact 100% for sure as a rookie. The combine also will be big for his stock to measure his athletic traits to see if he can potentially play a 3-4 outside linebacker. I know there's a team, maybe like the Green Bay Packers, that will be intrigued with his ability to affect the run, affect the pass, but they're like, well, hey, is there athletic limitations that are preventing you from playing a 3-4? I would say he can play a 3-4 right now from what I've seen on tape, but I will say that the combine is kind of big to prove that he can do so, which ultimately has to put that in the negatives because that could affect his draft stock in terms of versatility to a scheme. My pro comparison for Clelin Ferrell is Jason Pierre-Paul. I think JPP might be ultimately a little bit better of an athlete, but their games look pretty damn similar. You take Clelin Ferrell's best game at Clemson, you take JPP's best game obviously with the Bucks or the Giants, and you're going to see a lot of simulators jump off the board right away. So that is my pro comp. Not a huge fan of that one, not as much as I just want to reiterate the fact I'm not a huge fan of any of these pro comps, but I tried my best to get as close as possible. So going to number 2, edge rusher number 2 was my sleeper, and then he got a massive amount of momentum as he closed out the regular season in college football in the SEC, and that is Josh Allen, 6'5", 260 pounds, out of Kentucky in 2018. He had 88 tackles, 21.5 TFLs, 17 sacks, 4 pass breakups, 5 forced fumbles. When you look at Josh Allen, he has great length. He is a prototypical build for a defensive end. He's a tremendous athlete, and I personally think he is best suited as a 3-4, which is kind of where I will always differentiate in my mock drafts, where I think, obviously there's 2 types of mock drafts you can do. You can do a mock draft where you try to predict what the team will actually draft, or you can do a mock draft where you are hypothetically in control of the team and you make your best pick. And when I do those mock drafts, Josh Allen is not going to any team that doesn't run a 3-4. Because here's why. I've watched Josh Allen in the past couple of years play my Florida Gators, and more importantly here in 2018, he played the Florida Gators. He was covering running backs and tight ends with good success. I couldn't believe it. I was like, okay, this guy here coming in, we're gonna need our tackles to be ready, because he's gonna try to put pressure on and gonna try to sack Felipe Franks. And then out of nowhere, this guy would drop back into coverage and like body bag our tight end. I could not believe it. I feel like he could go to a 4-3 scheme and not be terrible, but I just think seeing those zone coverage skills, he would be underutilized if he doesn't go to anything that's not a 3-4. So that's kind of where I have him pigeonholed right now. Really the big negative for Josh Allen is he needs to add more strength. If he's going to play in a 4-3, because I've seen a lot of mock drafts that have him going to, say, the 49ers, maybe the Jets, he's definitely not strong enough right now to consistently win off the edge with his hand in the ground. I think he's an off-ball outside linebacker. But you never know. You never know what teams are going to do. Pro comparison for him, this is weird, but I actually feel pretty, out of all my pro comps, it's the one that I feel pretty good about, is TJ Watt. Obviously, different body types asked to do different things in college. TJ Watt was clearly always going to be an outside linebacker, whereas Josh Allen has that tweener ability to be a 4-3 end or a 3-4 outside linebacker. But I just see a lot of similarities between TJ Watt and Josh Allen. From an athletic standpoint, it's going to be interesting to see how we can put their combine performances side by side. But when they're in the game, when they're in pads, their tape looks very, very similar. I think what you see in TJ Watt for being well-rounded, what you see in being able to, put his hands up, affect the pass, get some pass breakups, but also, he was a point in time where he was leading the league in the sacks. That is the kind of upside, that is the kind of skill set that I personally feel that Josh Allen is going to provide in the National Football League. And I hope to God, personally, as a fan of Josh Allen, and more so maybe a bigger fan that he's no longer in the SEC, I really do want to see him go to a 3-4. And then finishing up at number 1, clearly it's number 1. It's Nick Bosa, 6'4", 265 out of Ohio State. I have him as my number 2 player in the draft, obviously behind Mr. Ed Oliver. In 2018, he only played in 3 games. Still in those 3 games, he put up 14 tackles, 6 TFLs, 4 sacks, and a forced fumble. Lord would only know if he played a full 12 plus, he probably might have been a chance to be, if his numbers were that draw-dropping, could have been my number 1 prospect. Don't know yet. But just for reference, in 2017, when he actually played a full season, he had 34 tackles, 16 TFLs, 8.5 sacks, and a forced fumble. When we look at Nick Bosa, this is going to be the easiest pros and cons. He is just incredibly versatile, even though I do think he is better suited towards a 4-3, which is why, now knowing that the Arizona Cardinals are going to a 3-4, there's a chance, if you're a 49er fan, that Nick Bosa can legitimately slip to you because, obviously his ceiling will be as a 4-3 end. But we saw, say, his brother, who is, I'm going to spoil it right now. Well, actually, no, I'm not going to do that yet because obviously for the slideshow. But, his brother, Joey Bosa, was better suited to be a 4-3, got drafted when the Chargers were running a 3-4, and then eventually they switched to a 4-3, and things worked out better for them. But for Nick Bosa, just tremendous athlete. There's no real weakness. I can't look at Nick Bosa's game and say, well, he's not great at that, or he's not good at this, could get a little better at that. He has his injury concern, the injury that he suffered last year, but it looks like everything's going to be good to go for the combine and all the testing, so that's not really it. So the pro comparison for Nick Bosa is Joey Bosa. Again, don't feel tremendous about this comp because it seems, feels kind of lazy. But where Joey Bosa might have been a little bit more powerful, you get a little bit more agile with Nick Bosa, but still their tapes look pretty goddamn similar. What they, from a technical standpoint, from their upside standpoint, it's a lazy comp, but it's a comp that, pretty much it looks pretty clear to me that it's still a realistic one to tack on Mr. Bosa. I think Nick Bosa has as much of a chance to go #1 overall, and like I said, for me, he is. It's not even like a 1-2 between him and Ed Oliver for the best player in the draft. It's almost like a 1A is Ed Oliver, 1B is Nick Bosa. So there you go, guys. Those are my edge rusher rankings for the upcoming 2019 draft. As always, if you agree or disagree with any of the rankings you saw today, let me know in the comment section below. As always, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you're dope and you're up and you enjoy the 2019 draft content. It is going to continue. We still got to do linebackers, corners, and safeties for rankings, and then we're going to get into our mock drafts and mock draft season. So I hope you guys do join me for that. Thank you for watching today's video, and until next time, it's C4 saying peace out.